All right, folks, welcome back to the Crisis Report. We're going to get started. Today, we are talking about the strikes and a very terrifying day that has happened over the last 24 hours, not just across the country, but across the planet.
I see a bad moon rising.
What's your problem?
All right, friends, welcome back to the Crisis Report. We'll be talking today about a bunch of stuff. Please hit the like button and subscribe and do all those things. If you need this as a transcript to follow the links, you may go to preppernow.substack.com. There are more links in the description of places you can find me. I'm happy to have you here. And we're going to be talking about a very terrifying day, a terrifying night over the last 48 hours in the world. And we're just going to get started here because we got a lot. This will be covering the last 48 hours. And from there, we'll see. World's kind of holding its breath right now, but it seems like more major conflict is going to be happening in the Middle East. Here we go. Danish foreign minister rebuffed Trump, saying Greenland is not for annexation. Mexico reported 22 measles cases after the U.S. outbreak. Putin has sent Trump a message about his proposal for a ceasefire on the envoy. Kremlin said on Friday, adding that it's grounds for cautious optimism that a deal can be reached. Everything is kind of on hold right now. The Kremlin has responded to the strikes on Yemen, but we'll get there. Trump said that we had a very good and productive discussions with Vladimir Putin, and there's a good chance that this war will finally come to an end, but we shall see. Trump administration opens at the investigation of more than 50 universities, part of its anti-DEI campaign. G7 has called for resumption of unhindered aid to Gaza. Canada will never be a part of the U.S. That's part of the new Prime Minister Carney. There's talk of them not doing elections because of tariffs, or basically because they don't want conservatives to win. So democratic. United States Department of Education has opened an investigation Friday into dozens of universities for the DEI programs. United States air regulator has boosted Washington airport safety after the crash of a helicopter and an airplane with restricted around the airport. An American Eagle airliner, of course, hit a military Black Hawk on January 29th. That killed 67 people. Trump has given the remarks that the DOJ predecessors turned the Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice. I stand before you today to declare that those days are over and they are never going to come back. Trump says that CNN and MSNBC are political arms of the Democrat Party. He's absolutely correct. So is YouTube. President Trump vowed to expel rogue actors and corrupt forces from the government during a speech at the Justice Department. Captain of the ship that collided with a U.S. flag tanker in North Sea is charged with manslaughter, according to the UK. United States has expelled its South African ambassador. The Senate advanced the GOP funding bill 6238. The 10 Democrats who voted for it were Schumer, Fetterman, Cortez Masto, Durbin, King, Schatz, Hassan, Peters, Gillibrand, and Shaheen. 54-46 votes said it passed the GOP funding bill, officially averted the shutdown, and now it heads to Trump, who will sign it. Trump got bumped in the face by a boom mic at Base Andrews, who he, Joint Base, where he said that's going to be a big story. It was. Musk, SpaceX, launched a new rescue crew to the NASA astronauts who've been stuck on the ISS for more than 9 months. They are there, and they are successfully extracting them. Congratulations. Guatemala on Friday extradited the alleged leader of a human smuggling ring wanted by the United States for over over the deaths of 53 migrants in a sweltering truck in 2022. 42-year-old individual who allegedly threw Molotov cocktails at vehicles and spray painted Yahtzee cars at a Colorado Tesla dealership, and also thinks that they can be fluid in their crotch. Lives with her mother due to emotional problems and calls herself Baby online. I read a thing where all of the mass pew-pews in the last couple years have been predominantly of these crotch shifters. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's an interesting thing. It's almost like they're not really of mind, you know, and they need help. Yeah, and they shouldn't be perpetuated, promoted, and pushed as if there's some kind of great people. They should actually get some form of help, of a psychological order. Trump, person who was the real president during the Joe years, is the person who controlled the auto pen. Blackout in Cuba, nationwide. Now there's one in Panama and Venezuela, but we'll get there. Reuters reporting that the Trump administration is considering broad travel restrictions affecting citizens from 41 countries, according to a memo sent to Reuters. You have number one would be a full visa suspension, 10 countries. Number two would be a partial visa suspension, that is 5 countries. 3 would be conditional restrictions, that is 26 countries. And the United States official, speaking on the condition of anonymity, cautioned there could be changes on the list and that it is yet to be approved by the administration, including United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio, talking to Reuters. Memo lists a total of 41 countries in all in 3 separate groups. The full suspension groups would be Afghanistan, Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. I'm not going to go all through the rest, but let's just say there's countries like Cabo Verde, South Sudan, Gambia. These are all countries that are seen as countries where potential problems could be coming out of. A new widespread blackout hit Cuba after the national electricity grid crashed. Appeals court has lifted the block on Trump's executive orders restricting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Ukrainians began to attack recruiters, and one got unalived who was hunting them down. He was a nationalist named Demian Ganul. He participated in the Odessa trade union fire and helped to hunt down, air quotes, volunteers, if you want to call them that, to fight at the front, and was taken out with two aerations to the skull, held by a man in a military uniform. The shooter has not been identified yet, but evidently he got him once, walked back over calmly, and decided to aerate for a second time. Seems people are not really into this whole thing going on. And, you know, when you push people too far, they tend to do things like this. After Putin rejected the U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire, Trump introduced new sanctions against Russia. Trump tightened sanctions on Russia, imposed additional restrictions on oil, gas, and banking. It is reported that the United States president did not renew the Treasury Department's license, which allowed foreign companies to make payments for Russian energy sources through sanctioned Russian banks. Restricting access to American banking systems makes it difficult for other countries to buy Russian oil, thereby limiting global supplies. The media claims that this will serve as one of the levers of pressure on convincing Russia to agree to a ceasefire. French President Macron says that Russia must now accept the U.S.-Ukrainian proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. John Bolton says that Trump only wants Ukrainian ceasefire because he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Think about that statement right there. Just think about it on its face. He only wants to win because he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, but like in the process of doing that, even if there are some, self-promoting auspices of it, He's still promoting peace. Like, who cares? If it saves lives. What a stupid statement. No, it's because he's arrogant. But even if his arrogance gets peace, who cares? Hamas says they have agreed to release hostage Edan Alexander and the bodies of 4 American hostages. Release looks like American negotiations, not Israeli. Hamas said they received a new offer for phase 2 of the ceasefire and hostage deal from American mediators yesterday and responded positively to it. Henceforth, the release of 1 living and 4 unalived American hostages. Portuguese defense minister announced the suspension of a deal with America which included the purchase of F-35 stealth fighter jets. Portuguese defense minister stated that they fear that the Trump administration will decide to halt software updates or the supply of spare parts and will look for European-made alternatives instead. There are elections coming up in Portugal, and it's not looking good for the leftist government there. Netanyahu is reportedly disheartened by the Americans as it contradicts principles that Israel had previously established, selection amongst those with foreign citizenship, as well as the release of dead hostages before living hostages. Hamas spokesman says that Israel is evading from reaching a conclusion to the conflict and abandoning their citizens. This comes after U.S. negotiated deal to release American citizens in Doha. Hamas leaders said the mediators are making intensive efforts despite Israel's procrastination and evasion of the agreement. Netanyahu attempted to evade and thwart it and will not succeed. We are working with the mediators to force Israel to complete the stages of the agreement. So, we shall see. Trump's hostage envoy, Adam Boehler, and the Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, achieved breakthrough with the return of American hostages while negotiating in Doha, Qatar. U.S. asked for more imports of eggs from Denmark and other European countries to take on the price there, knowing that it will be a domestic win. Israeli Prime Minister's office issued a statement saying while Israel has accepted the Witkoff outline, Hamas is refusing and not moving a millimeter. At the same time, it continues to use manipulation and psychological warfare. Prime Minister will convene the ministerial team on Saturday night to receive a detailed report from the negotiation team and decide on the next steps for the release of the hostages. Russian President Vladimir Putin has sent Donald Trump a message about his proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine via Trump's special envoy. Kremlin said on Friday, adding that it saw grounds for cautious optimism that a deal could be reached. Netanyahu has called back the Israeli negotiating team from Qatar after Hamas's announcement of a deal to release American hostages brokered by America. Hamas' alleged offer to release American hostages was intended to sabotage the negotiations, according to Israeli officials. Trump said if Russia doesn't spare the Ukrainian troops encircled in the Kursk region, it will be a horrible massacre, one not seen since World War II. Medvedev emphasized that if they refuse to lay down their arms, Ukrainian militants will be consistently and mercilessly destroyed. Bloody regime of Kiev scum still has a chance to save its people. The coming hours will show what they have chosen. That, of course, was from an anti-Ukrainian channel. Speaking of which, I get it from all over, folks. I don't go one way or the other. You know, I definitely have my own beliefs, but I get things from everything so you can hear the entire story from all different sides. Oh, that was Medvedev, no wonder. China appears to be conducting amphibious landing exercises with specially built vessels at a beach in the South China Sea, sort of practice it would be conducting if it was considering an invasion of an island as tensions over Taiwan grow. White House has rejected Hamas's statement and said that the group is claiming flexibility while actually making unacceptable demands in the negotiations over the Gaza hostage and ceasefire deal. President Trump has made it clear that Hamas will either release hostages immediately or pay a severe price. Hamas is making a very bad bet. The time is on its side It is not. Hamas is well aware of the deadline and should know that we will respond accordingly if that deadline passes. Betting odds on U.S. entering a recession in 2025 have gone up to 43%. Strikes hit Yemen's rebel-held capital as Trump announces attack, according to Houthi TV witnesses. Trump ordered the operation against the Houthis. It's worth the effort. So here we go. This is what we know so far. This is from Rybar. They are pro-Russian, so it will be from that lens. Just a short time ago, the Americans carried out airstrikes on Yemen. The goal is to send a warning signal to Iran, who Trump wants to conclude a nuclear deal with. Very fact of launching this operation with the Houthi movement, Ansar Allah, was expected. Intensification of hostilities in the Middle East is needed by Israel. Half of Trump's cabinet are supporters of its Shabbat government. Trump has declared Make America Great Again since coming to power, but if we really evaluate it, he's saying it's MIGA, M-I-G-A, and not M-A-G-A. From the perspective of the prospects of American operation in Yemen, they are not visible. Each strike against the Houthis will be very costly, and much will the U.S. armed forces spend the fighting drags on for a long time. Knowing the Houthis, it will definitely drag on. So we'll have some counters to that one. When a reporter asked Trump what would happen if Russia rejected the ceasefire, his response was, "It will be bad news for the world." I was joking a little when I said Trump on his promise to end the war in 24 hours. So he said he was joking a little bit on that promise that within 24 hours of coming to power, he would end the war in the eastern portion of Europe. I don't think anybody expected him to do it within the first day. The first 3 months would be a major win, and if he can do it in 2025, that would be a win itself. But we'll see how things are going. This whole strike on the Houthis is a new element. Medvedev tells United Kingdom and its foreign minister to shove the idea of Russia accepting ceasefire without conditions up the S-hole it came from. Okay? CENTCOM airstrike footage released after Trump announced that the leader of ISIS has been liquidated by the United States forces in Iraq. Putin's call to surrender is still open for the Ukrainians trapped in Kursk, but won't be open for long, according to Peskov. United States Air Force U-2 Dragon Lady spy planes are flying along the southern border, Air Force and defense officials have disclosed. China, a J-15 fighter jet, Chinese Air Force, crashed during a training flight. Pilot ejected safely. Russian forces in the Kursk region covered a flag belonging to the Georgian Foreign Legion fighting with the Ukrainians, or recovered a flag. Zelensky says that Ukraine is monitoring a buildup of Russian troops on the Sumy border and it's ready to defend Ukrainian territory. Pope is working on a signature reform from the hospital as he's recovering from pneumonia. His reform project aims to make the church a more welcoming and responsive place, aligning with his progressive views. So I think you all can read in to where he's going with that one. Cuba suffered a massive power outage Friday, affecting Havana, country's provinces, and left millions in the dark. Initial reports of an ambush by Assad remnants against the HTS convoy just on the outskirts of Damascus. Last time this happened, we witnessed violence in Latakia and Tartus. Ukrainian president has approved the composition of a negotiating group to resolve the conflict. Includes the head of Zelensky's office, Andrei Yermak, his deputy Pavlo Palisa, Foreign Minister Andrei Shibya, and Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. Reported photo shows a journal of compliance in which the 30-day ceasefire has been. It's actually the written-up ceasefire. It's on people's desks. According to recent U.S. intelligence reports, Putin will probably stage a provocation, have a reason to break the truce. That's according to the Washington Post, who, of course, doesn't want this because it would be a win for Trump. If it's a win for Trump, then their communism won't prevail. According to intelligence reports, Putin is still determined to gain control of Kiev, even if the Russian Federation agrees to a ceasefire. It will use it to rebuild its troops and rearmament. There are no signs that Putin has abandoned plans to keep Ukraine in its zone of interest and influence. Kremlin believes that Trump is weak and can be manipulated. That's the Washington Post. Initial reports of an explosion in the Latakia province of Western Syria. United Kingdom Prime Minister Starmer says the plan of deploying a peacekeeping force to Ukraine is moving to the operational phase. He wants fighting, basically. Tornado aftermath update. Information is becoming more accurate as the morning progresses. Currently, I have reports of 10 storm-related fatalities. 2 fatalities in Ozark County, 1 fatality in Butler County. This is in Missouri. This is not too far away from where I grew up. I am familiar with Butler County. 6 fatalities, Wayne County, and 1 fatality, Jefferson County. I believe that's all central Missouri and Ozarks and western central, if I remember my geography correct. Patrol and local agencies are working to assist those in need and assess the damage. We urge residents to stay away from debris-filled areas, watch for down power lines, and follow regional emergency services for localized updates. The tornadoes were across the entire central to southern portions of the country. Georgia Governor Kemp issued a state of emergency for weather there. President Donald Trump blasted the MSM for reporting that his envoy with Witkoff was made to wait for 9 hours, which was completely untrue. Why? Because they have to lie. Air and naval strikes ordered by President Trump hit radars, air defenses, missiles, and drone systems in an effort to open international shipping lanes in the Red Sea that the Houthis have disrupted for months with their own attacks. United States officials said the bombardment, the most significant military action of Mr. Trump's second term, was also meant to send a warning signal to Iran. We covered this yesterday on the lead up. I think the whole thing was kind of put together. I think they went in and tried to dupe Hamas into agreeing to things knowing that they wouldn't, because they're not saying what they have, and then Netanyahu came out and feigned like disbelief and agreement on that. Hamas, it didn't work out with them, and then they said, okay, now we got the green light, let's go in and shock Yemen. And now there's talk of Israel doing a second buffering strike, but we'll get there. Tonight's strikes were launched by an FA-18 Super Hornet from the United States, the USS Harry S. Truman, CVN-75 in the northern Red Sea, as well as Air Force strike aircraft and drones launched from bases across the Middle East. 9 killed, 9 wounded American airstrikes, according to the Houthis. In response to Trump's threat to Houthis, say our attacks in the Red Sea will continue and will not stop. Russia accused Norway of militarizing Svalbard, warning it could escalate tensions. If I remember correctly, it's a little area up there between the two countries. I think it's an island. It's kind of seen as a very strategic piece of land. Norway, of course, denied the claim, stating its actions comply with Svalbard Treaty and NATO obligations. Russia summoned the Norwegian ambassador to Moscow over the issue. Macron, if Kiev asks allied forces to be on its territory, Moscow has nothing to do with it. So it's funny, it's like whenever Trump is in there trying to do something that might alleviate the pressure, you've got Starmer saying we're going to the operational phase. You got this issue comes up with Svalbard. You got Macron coming out and saying, hey, we're going to, this doesn't involve, the Kremlin or whatever. I mean, it's just, unless I'm getting bad information, and I'm getting it from all over, it just feels like NATO, is doing things to undermine and to keep this whole conflict going. That's my reading. Journalists at VOA, Voice of America, were informed that their administrative leave with full-time employees were affected. From what we can tell, VOA is effectively shut down at this moment. VOA and other state-run media face deep cuts, staff placed on paid leave, and program grants terminated. Barack Obama's appointed judge, James E. Boasberg, has blocked President Trump's attempt to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to deport illegal immigrants, specifically Tren de Aragua people. This guy said, bring them back, put them on the plane, even if they're up in the air, send them back. We want those guys in our country. This is what we're dealing with. South Korean military said the Russian warplanes briefly entered country's airspace, then left. Of course, they said it was training purposes. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, at around 9:20 a.m. the day, several Russian military aircraft entered the East Sea Cadiz sequentially and soon left the Cadiz in the east and north without violating airspace during the process. Joint Chiefs of Staff said as a result of communication with the Russian side, we confirmed that it was for training purposes and that there was no intention of violating airspace. Excuse me. Serbia, all public transport to Belgrade has been canceled. There have been major protests there. Trump signs executive order to cut 7 U.S. federal agencies, according to the White House. Among them is the Global Media Agency that manages Radio Liberty, Voice of America. Noted that the head of each government agency must submit the report to the director of the Office of Management and Budget on the implementation of the law. That's the OMB. Representative of Yemen's Ansar Allah said the American airstrikes will not do a darn thing. In fact, we will increase our pressure against the Zionist entity anymore. U.S. bases in Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar have all been placed on heightened state of alert after the attack. Initial reports of targeted airstrikes against senior leadership belonging to the Houthis in western Yemen. Wall Street Journal confirmed that Houthi leadership was targeted during that. Also reports that the Angel of Death was flying. That is a gunship that can literally mow a freaking mountain in half with its machine guns in there. It is the Reaper. That was used on the Houthis. New round of airstrikes reported in the Al-Baida governorate of Yemen. Israeli air defense systems in the south and central Israel raised on alert. Defenses intercepted a projectile fired towards U.S. aircraft carrier CVN-75. Houthis claimed multiple projectiles were fired towards the U.S. Navy. United States attack drones now reportedly flying over western Yemen, according to the Houthi media. Hezbollah condemns U.S. airstrikes against the Houthis. Renewed airstrikes near the Mukairas and Al-Qurashia districts in Al-Baida governorate. After the U.S. attack on Yemen, dozens of wounded, including children, were rushed on stretchers, faces covered in blood, burns clearly visible. Canadian government considering postponing elections due to Trump's tariffs. Tariffs are going to make them postpone elections, folks. You're a democracy. No, you're fascist, and you don't want anything of a democratic nature or republic nature. You want your power. You know that the conservatives are winning. They're winning across the board, across the country, across the world. You know why? Because your policies are terrible and they're harmful to people. Powerful lightning strikes electrifying Atlanta, Georgia. Trump admin not complying with orders from Obama judge to turn planes around that are carrying illegal immigrants and the Tren de Aragua from the Alien Enemies Act. He basically told the guy to go shove it. Congressman Brandon Gill announced plans to file articles of impeachment against Judge James Boasberg after his judicial order blocked the deportation of illegal immigrants linked to Venezuelan gang activity. Russia is calling the Trump administration to immediately cease military action against the Houthis. Death toll, U.S. airstrikes rises to 40. New U.S. airstrikes are reported in Maghrib, Yemen, after the Sa'ad areas. Trump said the Houthis must raise a white flag and then we will stop the attacks. And eliminated were several terrorists operating under the cover of journalists in Gaza. IAF struck a terror cell yesterday in Beit Lahia area that also included a terror who infiltrated Israeli territory during the October 7th massacre. Terrorists struck where operating a drone intended to carry out terror attacks against IDF troops operating in Gaza. The drone was consistently used by the Islamic Jihad organization. Above the names of the eliminated people, I don't have them, but yeah, it's like 6 of them. One of the 3 goals of the strikes of Yemen, according to the Wall Street Journal, is to send a message to Iran that they could be next and to show them what military capability might and could be deployed, according to Wall Street Journal. Other 2 goals were to hit Houthi missile launchers that were being moved toward the coast in preparation for new attacks on shipping, and to target Houthi leadership, which has gone into hiding. Supposedly the political HQ has been flattened. Iran condemned the U.S. airstrikes against the Houthis, saying the United States should stop killing the people of Yemen. Panamanian president says the country is facing a nationwide blackout, to which Aquila said, "Is it Black Hawk season?" jokingly. Panama has been thrown into a nationwide blackout following an explosion and resulting fire inside one of the generators of La Chorrera thermonuclear power plant. 40 U.S. raids in less than 10 hours, according to Houthi media there. Chinese President Xi Jinping has declined an invitation to attend the EU event in Brussels to mark 50 years of EU-Chinese relations. Yemeni Houthis claim that U.S. assets across the Middle East are now legitimate targets, and strong response is coming for last night's attacks. Death toll in the tornadoes of central and southern U.S. has risen to 32, according to the Associated Press. In short, Iran just gave the green light to the Houthis to retaliate. Kataib Sarkat al-Qudus, Iranian-backed militia in Iraq, said, "We are ready to target U.S. interests in region once we receive orders to do such from the Houthis in Yemen." First visuals of celebration from stranded ISS astronauts when they were met by SpaceX rescuer team. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore are due to finally return to Earth on March 19th. May they come in safely and get home. God bless them. President Donald Trump has given authorization to U.S. military commanders to Middle East to carry out strikes with impunity without any authorization needed from the White House. He effectively gave the military to drop the hammer on them. Blackout in Venezuela. There will be more strikes in the region to come, and the military sees the new opportunities to hit militant leaders, according to U.S. officials on Yemen. The Houthi group has issued instructions to its leaders and their families to leave their homes and workplaces in anticipation of a new wave of airstrikes, which are expected to continue in the coming days, according to Sky News Arabic. And Israel reportedly convinced the Americans to strike the Yemeni Houthis, which both countries agreed to the first step towards a strike against Iran. And there you have it. That is your crisis report as of 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 16th. Links in the description. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your support. It's never been more important. The friends in the back are literally grasping to the last vestiges of their power, and they're going to do everything they can, like the screaming willy-nillys that they are, whatever you want to call them. So the best thing to do is to keep sharing this information out, to keep supporting us here at the Crisis Report, and we will do our best to get information coming. This has been a very busy weekend, so my apologies for not being as prevalent as usual, but we will continue that going forward.